My name is James Lightheart, and as the chair of the Queen's Community Campaign in support of the United Way of KFLNA, I'd like to welcome you to today's speaker series session. Today's session focuses on poverty and aligns with the UN's #1 Sustainability Development Goal of no poverty. I'd like to start by acknowledging that Queens is situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee. To acknowledge this territory is to recognize its longer history, one predating the establishment of the earliest European colonists. It is also to acknowledge that this territory signifies or is significant for Indigenous people who lived and continue to live upon it today. I'd like to hand things over to Principal and Vice Chancellor Patrick Deane to get us started today. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, James. Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased you were able to join us today for this important opportunity to talk about some of the issues that face our community and the way in which the United Way works to support those agencies and to advance well-being in our community at large. James made mention of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and indeed, as everyone knows, these are a focus and a preoccupation across the university at the moment. The point I would make about them is that their relevance is right there on our doorstep. People tend to think with the SDGs of these being very much about global issues, and indeed they are, but of course those issues manifest themselves in our community on our front step, and all the more reason to focus on addressing them there. So really pleased to support the United Way, as we have done so admirably for many years. And to do so through these opportunities to talk to people who are working in the community to address some of these very intractable issues that we all face, and in particular at this event, the problem of poverty. Just a word about our community. The Queen's community has historically been very generous and is proving itself again generous in its support of the United Way. The university is a leader within the overall United Way campaign, and our goal this year is $475,000, which is more than 10% of the entire community campaign goal. We're the largest workplace and retiree campaign in Eastern Ontario, and I want to thank everyone who has donated and supported the United Way campaign through to this date. I'm very proud of those stats and to be such a preeminent campaign, but of course none of that happens without the generosity of members of our community contributing. So now I'd like to introduce the moderator for our discussion today, Pavna Varma, who is the CEO and President of the United Way of Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox and Addington, and Pavna will share with us some information about our topic and will introduce our panelists for today. So Pavna, over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. And again, thank you to the Queen's community, retirees, employees, and students for your financial contributions, but also for all you do, volunteering, research, all the work that you do in the community is very much appreciated. Today, we'll talk about poverty. It's a tough topic, and 17,865 people in Kingston, according to StatsCan, live below the poverty line. That still doesn't count a lot of people who are marginalized, who are not able to access some really basic needs. Through the pandemic, no surprise to everyone, the need has grown. We're seeing a 25 to 30% increase in people needing basic services like food and shelter and counseling just to support themselves. We know it's tough. We know that it's hard to make ends meet. Many people are working more than one job. There's precarious employment. We know that many people are struggling just to pay the rent and keep the lights on, at the same time trying to feed their family a healthy meal. So we have amazing agencies. Last year, thanks to your support, 74,000 people were helped in our community. Now, not all of those programs are about poverty, but a large number of the programs that we support are actually helping people who are struggling to make ends meet, who are struggling with very complex issues that result in them being unhoused or needing support. We do some interventions like providing backpacks, winter boots, coats, menstrual hygiene products. We know these are kind of just the tip of the iceberg. These are just helping people with their budgets a little bit to get through the day, to pay for some of the basics. But what we really enjoy working on is some of the longer term supports that our community provides them. And with us today are 3 of the 61 agencies that we support. With us today, we'll have Aidan Dorose, who works with youth who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. We'll talk to Gilles, who is with Trellis HIV and Community Care, and they actually also run the Integrated Care Hub. And with Jane, who works with Ryandale Shelter. So we'll introduce them I'll introduce them with one by one, but I'm going to start with Aidan. 1/3 of the people who are homeless are youth or children living with a family or not, who are unhoused. And the stat is alarming, but we also know that youth who are homeless need a very specific type of care. The reasons they come to homelessness is different from adults, and the supports and the care they need, the solutions, are also different from the ones we offer adults. So Aidan and his team at One Roof, they do a fabulous job in partnership with 27 agencies. Aidan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Pablo. I just wanted to start by thanking everyone for their time today. My name is Aidan Dorose, as mentioned, and I have the privilege of being one of the supervisors here at One Roof. What is One Roof Kingston? We're a collaborative community here of 27 different agencies who provide varying supports to those homeless in our community, age 16 to 24, those vicariously housed, and a variety of other clients. I always like by starting presentations by giving a quick story from a young person who has allowed me to share his experience with One Roof. We had received several phone calls from the police and bylaw about an individual who was camped out at a busy city park. As soon as we get calls like this, which occur almost weekly, we sent our outreach team out, who was also funded by the United Way, as well as some of our youth staff, to meet with this individual. It's not uncommon for young people in this situation to be untrusting. They've been let down in many cases by the school system, their families, parents, a variety of different things that have led to their current situations. This young person chose to not meet with us upon our first 3 visits. On the 4th visit, we found a staff member who had similar interests based on assumptions we were making. This young person agreed to come down to One Roof. They accessed our drop-in, which is open from 8:30 to 4. They had a shower, their first shower in weeks. They had their first hot meal, and they couldn't remember for how long. They were able to access shoes, clothing, socks, just to hang out in a space with no judgment. From there, the young person acquired ID from our drop-in staff who helped them with that process. He then became trusting that we were there in his corner to help him. From there, the young person was referred to our housing and homelessness supports, one of the biggest programs here out of One Roof Kingston. He moved through the prevention diversion system, which is kind of the baseline for homelessness in Kingston for youth. From there, he was assigned a Housing First worker, those who need the highest level of supports. Through Housing First and our crime prevention program, this young person was able to hook himself all internally up with an addictions counselor, a general counselor, a housing worker, and a crime prevention worker. Through the counseling, which is actually also funded by the United Way, he was able to realize why his behaviors were what they were and why his cognitions were as they were as well, past trauma. As he began to work through his past trauma and his addictions, we were able to house him in one of Home-Based Housing's housing units. This young man, now that he has a place to stay at night to rest his head, then decided, you know what, I want to begin contributing back to the agency that helped me out so much. He began doing volunteer cleaning hours around the building. He was that voice when young people began acting up that wasn't a staff member. It's very easy for me to tell someone how to act when I've never been in their shoes. This young man stepped up time and time again to talk to his peers, to convince them to access services and to behave appropriately. If I fast forward to today, this young man is now months sober. He's housed. He's gainfully employed in our community. And yet we still see his smiling face walk through this door 3 or 4 times a week to not only connect with staff, peers, but to do some light cleaning. Donors such as yourself keep the lights on at this agency and make things like this possible. I'd like to end by reading some testimonials from some clients. I also always give this disclosure that I did not seek these clients out. These are clients who love this space and want to ensure we continue to have funding. I am 21 years old and I'm a recovering addict. I spent 7 years in active addiction and being homeless. Today, I am almost 5 months sober. When I started working with the staff at One Roof, they helped me realize that I do deserve help. They helped me get into a treatment center and into youth transitional housing program. I owe part of my recovery and success to the community supports and programs like One Roof. Right now, I am homeless. One Roof is a safe place for me to go and get food and water and take a shower. I don't feel safe going to other places. With staff, I get to learn how to cook and do fun activities. My worker helps me with everything, like getting to my appointments, and she's really helping me try to get my life on track. One final quote, when this one really resonates with me. One Roof is my community. They are my family. I was homeless on the streets for 3 years and staff helped me to find a place to live. They make sure that I keep my house clean, stay out of trouble, and help me with pretty much everything. I'm almost 25 and I do not know what I'm going to do without the staff at One Roof. So some background on that, we stopped providing services at age 25. But again, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me today. Thank you to all donors and potential donors, and huge shout out to United Way, who helps us keep the lights on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aidan, for all the work that you and your colleagues do. It's an amazing space. It's very welcoming. You certainly welcome youth. The one thing we learned from youth when we were working on youth homelessness, trying to understand what we should do differently, the one thing we recognize that all youth who are homeless face, that they have in common, is trauma in their background. And it's really wonderful that you and your team provide a safe space where they can recover from their trauma at a pace that's comfortable for them. So thank you for all you do. Our next speaker is Gilles Charette, whose team, he and his team do an amazing job, again, helping some of our most vulnerable work and live with dignity, with a sense of belonging. So Gilles, over to you.
Thanks very much, Papna, and thank you for the opportunity. I always appreciate having a chance to speak about the good work that's taking place here at Trellis HIV and Community Care, and in particular at the Integrated Care Hub. There's a lot of stigma that is associated to people who are unhoused, who experience mental health challenges, substance use challenges, and the more we can tell the stories of the work that organizations like Ryandale and One Roof do, and the Integrated Care Hub, the more we can help address that stigma. So as Pavna mentioned, Trellis HIV and Community Care is one of the agencies that operates the Integrated Care Hub. And what that is it's a low barrier facility that serves between 100 and 150 individuals each day in the city of Kingston who are unhoused and who often face barriers accessing other shelters and services due to their mental health or substance use challenges. So as Aidan mentioned, there's a lot of similarities with the Integrated Care Hub program as with the One Roof program, and the experience of trauma is one of those commonalities. The objective of the ICH, or Integrated Care Hub, is really to help individuals stabilize by providing them with a sense of community. I like to call it meaning and purpose, so that they can access other services and create pathways to being unhoused. And the way that the United Way helps us is really in a few really important ways. And the first of which is providing healthy meals to the people we serve through a partnership that we have with Lionheart. They also provide support through frontline service delivery and funding some roles that do direct client-facing service. And finally, a program we call the Community Support Program, which provides meaningful employment for a living wage to the people we serve by giving them the opportunity to work alongside the staff at the Integrated Care Hub, doing some important work. So it's the Community Support Program in particular that I wanted to spend a little bit of time focusing on today, because it's an important tool to, again, provide people with options and pathways out of poverty. So the question that I ask myself is, what would I do to get back on my feet if I found myself unhoused and had challenges with substance use? So thinking about that, I wanted to share a little bit about one of the people we serve. Someone we'll call Jay for the sake of this story. Jay has been street involved for many years, experienced complex trauma, mental health, and substance use challenges. And Jay contracted HIV and connected with our organization, Trellis, about 22 years ago. Like many of us, Jay's had ups and downs, times when things have been good, and Jay has been housed and experienced stable relationships and has worked, and other times where he's struggled and even been incarcerated more than once. COVID-19 made things more difficult for Jay and for many of the people that we serve, and Jay ended up unhoused for many months. Ultimately, Jay found us at the Integrated Care Hub, where he agreed to work with the staff to see if we can get him housed again. So aside from providing Jay with a place to stay and with some healthy meals, the United Way funded community support program was able to provide Jay with employment at the ICH itself. First, he began serving coffee and food to the people we serve, then providing wellness checks, and eventually working directly alongside our harm reduction outreach workers as a full member of the team. So thanks to the community support program, Jay's confidence and mental health improved so that he can begin to see a different future for himself. He was reconnected to his primary care physician and his HIV doctor, and was able to suppress his viral load again so that he can live a long and hopefully healthy life in spite of his HIV infection, and is currently participating in an opioid substitution therapy program. So thanks to Jay's hard work and his ability to access the services of the Integrated Care Hub, including the community support program, recently Jay has been able to access a stabilization bed through one of our partners, Addictions and Mental Health, and is no longer staying in shelter. Most importantly, and this is the thing that makes my heart, grow 3 more sizes, is that our team was able to reconnect Jay with his mother, who he had been estranged from for over 12 years. And so that was really gratifying, both for him and for our team, to be able to facilitate that reconnection. Now, as happy as the progress that Jay is with the progress he's making, he knows his journey will continue to be tough. He continues to work alongside the team at the Integrated Care Hub, and he has a renewed sense of home and purpose, and knows that with the Integrated Care Hub, he's got a safe place to land if he needs it. Excuse me. So we're incredibly thankful for the donors who support the United Way campaign, for the opportunity that we have to help provide individuals we serve with a sense of connection, meaning, and purpose. So when you give to the United Way, you're really providing resources so that people, in the case of the Integrated Care Hub, can stabilize and find meaning and purpose in their lives. So thank you very much for your support and for taking the time to hear a little bit about the work that we do.
Thanks, Jill. What a great story to hear. It's wonderful that Jay is on the road to recovery and that he's reconnected with family. That is so important. And I know the ICH struggles quite a bit. You have an incredibly high number of clients, not enough space, and you still do so much with so little. So thank you for all that you and your team do. One of the things we also know is that the space is so tight, so it's really hard for people to actually even get counseling or housing supports. And so we're really grateful to our agencies for how they work together. So just as Aidan described, so many agencies wrapping around, same thing happens with the ICH. So Porch, which is that new recreational vehicle, they come once a week to that space, so at least they can get access to some primary health and some counseling space, so that at least they get some privacy when they are talking to people and being looked after. So really grateful for the network of support that surrounds everyone and how the agencies work together. Our next speaker is Jane Bailey with Ryandale. And this is, again, paths that lead to homelessness are very different for everyone. Everyone comes with a different journey, a different path on how they got to homelessness. What we love is once they've actually entered that circle of care with our agencies, they then get onto the path for more permanent housing, which is the ultimate goal. So with us today, Jane will describe how Ryandale supports their clients, their program users through transitional housing. So Jane.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for having me. As Bhavna said, my name is Jane Bailey, and I'm the Operations Administrator at Ryandale Transitional Housing. Ryandale has been in operation in Kingston for more than 25 years. You may be aware that we started as a shelter on Elm Street, but since 2010, we have operated a transitional house, one on Victoria Street, but earlier this year in January, we were able to open a second transition house with the help of the United Way. And that second house allowed us to almost double our capacity. So we serve men in the Kingston area. Right now, they may have come from an institutional background, or they may have come from hospitalization, but they're now getting ready to live independently. And so we offer them some services and a safe, stable place to live while they're getting ready to do that. Now, statistics show that of the people who are unhoused in Kingston, the numbers range anywhere from 200 to over 400 people who are currently unhoused in Kingston. But statistics show that about 80% of those people identify as male. We do serve only men right now, which is the largest portion of the unhoused population, but we would very much like to expand our services to include couples and perhaps families in the future. But all of that requires funding and growing operational resources. So the support of the United Way is extremely important in allowing us to keep growing and to offer services to more people who need it. Also in the past year, the United Way funding has helped us to complete some important repairs at our first transition house on Victoria Street, which has kept the house safe for the residents who are there and makes sure that it's sustainable for years to come. The support of the United Way and everybody who contributes to it means the world to Ryandale. With more than half of Canadians just $200 away from insolvency, and one paycheck away from being homeless, you can imagine that the need for transitional housing where people can work on their life skills and get a better solid foundation under them is more important than ever. Now, historically, all of our residents have been on fixed incomes. However, right now at the Clergy Street House, we have a couple of gentlemen who are working in the community, which is fabulous news. Many of our current residents are also over 60 years old, so they're seniors who are experiencing the challenges of being on a senior fixed income, as well as other challenges that led them to become homeless. One former resident is a talented Indigenous artist. His works have been featured in Martello Alley. And another resident is a Red Seal certified chef who may have cooked some of your favorite meals here in downtown Kingston. So although we do have some exceptional residents here, many of our residents are just normal folks who found themselves in absolutely horrific circumstances and could not access the supports that they needed to get back on their feet afterwards. They've experienced PTSD, personal trauma, addictions, and other mental health challenges. But through our partnerships with other United Way sponsored agencies, such as Addictions and Mental Health, KCHC, Lionhearts and Loving Spoonful, we're able to connect our residents with the supplies and services they need to live independently. The close cooperation of all these service providers that you're supporting with your United Way contributions is vital to ensuring that people don't slip through the cracks when they're at their most vulnerable. And it's no surprise to anybody who lives in Kingston or works downtown that the city has changed significantly in the past 10 years, and particularly since the time of COVID. Kingston's vulnerable population has become even more so, with complex needs that include mental health and addictions concerns, which are classified as disabilities under the Ontario Human Rights Code, as well as food and housing insecurity. Agencies such as Ryandale are working to help as many people as we can, but the services that vulnerable people need in Kingston now are more intensive than they used to be. Your United Way contributions are allowing Kingston community agencies to create a sustainable, continuous care network at a time when many of our resources have been stretched to the breaking point. With the support of the United Way, the city, and other organizations, Ryandale is now able to hire the right workers to give our residents the support they need as they get back on their feet and into permanent housing. On behalf of Ryandale, I thank you all so much. Together, we're stronger. Together, we're modeling for the city, the province, and the rest of Canada how to address tough problems while maintaining our humanity. But together, we can do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. What an inspiring way to kind of close the comments. It is together, like we couldn't do this without each of us working with each other. So thank you for that. Maybe I can open it up for questions. I know, Principal Deane, do you have any?
Right, I'm unmuted. I do. Thanks very much to the three presenters. Just inspiring, and I just so admire the work that you and your teams do to address these issues. I had a couple of questions which are sort of connected, and Jane, you spoke about the complexity of need. You know, I mean, when people are moved to contribute to the cause of poverty or to addressing poverty, they think of it as simply the absence of resources. But what's so obvious from what you said and what Jill said, and I know what Aidan said as well, is there are issues there that are sort of unquantifiable, like trust, how you gain the trust of individuals who are in situations in which they do need to be helped, but their ability to accept that help is so complex. So my question is really about the resources needed to address that dimension of poverty work. And then the general question I had for all three of you was your sense of the relation or the ratio of the people you're able to help to the scale of the problem in our community. I'd be really interested in your thoughts about any of these questions.
Great questions. Jane, do you want to go first?
Sure. Just in response to the number of people who we could potentially be helping, doing the math, if we did say there were 450 unhoused people in Kingston, 80% of that would be 360 men. We can currently house 15. So it is not a large number. That is why we are so interested in growing our resources and growing our capacity, because this is really not, it's the tip of the iceberg. And recognizing too, that just because someone's homeless doesn't mean they don't have preferences for housing. And after a certain age, the idea of sharing accommodation, sharing bathroom facilities, sharing kitchen facilities with someone, that requires trust as well. So even if you trust the agency, it may be difficult for you to establish trust with the other people who are sharing housing. So it is the only thing we can do in terms of encouraging them to trust the service providers is doing what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it, to always be available, always be reachable, and to act in a way that ensures that our clients' needs are met first. So in a recent instance, we had somebody who was experiencing quite a bad mental health crisis. They hadn't had a mental health crisis before they came into the house. They developed it while they were here because, as you know, mental health is a continuum. Sometimes you're well, sometimes you're not. Sometimes symptoms appear that haven't been there before. And he was becoming dangerous to the other residents in the house. So unfortunately, we had to find alternate accommodations for him. Which was instrumental to preserving the trust in the house for the other residents.
Thanks, Jane. I'm going to ask Gilles to comment.
Yeah, I've got. Thank you for the question. I've got a lot to say about it, so I'll try to keep it pretty brief. As an organization, about 4 years ago, we made a really intentional decision as it related to the work that we were doing in harm reduction, which is a philosophy that has, a genesis from many years ago, and harm reduction can be understood as looking both ways before crossing the street or putting on your seatbelt, but it's really been more commonly understood recently in the context of the drug poisoning crisis and substance use. So we made a decision about 4 years ago that we would prioritize hiring people with lived experience of substance use to work in community to do our harm reduction outreach. And for us as an organization, that was really transformative as far as the results that we were able to get in building trust with the people that we serve, because there's an understanding of the context of that shared experience that people have. And in fact, 80% of the staff at the Integrated Care Hub self-identify as having lived or living experience of substance use challenges. And I really think that brings with it its own complexities when you think about all of the trauma that accompanies that people's experiences. But the benefit as far as building trust has been you can't quantify the impact of that, at least in my opinion. And to echo what Jane was saying, really the need for options for individuals by way of housing is crucial. Many people in the community are aware that there is a growing encampment just outside of the Integrated Care Hub. Individuals who are unhoused tend to be where the services are. So whether it's, soup kitchens or methadone programs or street outreach, places where they can access practical supports or washrooms or showers. And we have been, since opening in August of 2020, over capacity every single day. We have the capacity technically for 23 individuals to stay in our rest zone every night that is full. And then we have people who, thankfully, our drop-in space is open 24 hours a day. And we have an additional 25 people who hang out there if they can't secure a bed in our space or elsewhere in the shelter system. And then, of course, there are the number of people who are unhoused and in tents behind the ICH. So the need is huge, and sadly, it's growing with the impacts of inflation, access to services having been limited during COVID. And then the other thing this was an insight for me in doing this work, because our roots are primarily in HIV care, is the critical need for people to have a place to store their belongings. And so when you think about creating pathways out of being unhoused, part of that is mental health supports, substance use supports if someone struggles with substance use, but even primary care. And if going to your doctor's appointment means packing up everything you own for fear of it being damaged or stolen, will you go? And so one of the big challenges we have as a community is, where do people put their things so that they can actually engage with the services that they need? And so part of models like One Roof and the Integrated Care Hub and others around bringing the services to the people who need them, rather than the other way around, expecting people to go and access services on their own, is really important to help solve some of these problems. And storage is emerging as a really important issue. In fact, it has been for a long time. It's just becoming more and more prominent. And I'll stop there. There's more to say, of course.
Thanks, Jill. And Aidan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just some quick thoughts here. I think Jane and Jill did an excellent job of covering a lot of what I would have said as well. For us here at One Roof, we use an approach called assertive engagement to build trust with our clients. They know that we're coming back every single day, rain or shine, no matter what the last interaction looked like, with a smile on our face, no judgment, and using our skills to see what these clients want. What is deemed successful for me in my life is not going to be the same as any other individual out there, just like our clients. For some, success is getting back into the emergency shelter. For some, it's getting a permanent house. It's about using our motivational interviewing and our strength-based outlook to help empower these individuals so that they can achieve their goals, not my goals or any system goals. United Way has done a phenomenal job in noticing things like that. So for example, youth homelessness numbers have gone up. Here comes the United Way with an additional housing first worker who provides the highest level of service to those in needs, those with the highest number of needs as assessed by our assessment worker. So again, as far as success, it's really in the eye of the beholder. I believe that we're able to help a lot of youth in a variety of ways, but I would hate to define a percentage just because I don't define what success is for these kids. They do it themselves, and none of it's possible without donations from people such as yourself, the United Way, and then the variety of services in the city of Kingston, which I think if we were to look longitudinally across the country, I think Kingston does a heck of a good job connecting with each other as agencies to make sure that all individuals are served and that we do what we can as different partners to help out. No one agency can do everything. And that's something I've really noticed in this community. When there's a problem, there's 15 agencies on the call to talk about the solution. Can't say enough about the partnerships in this community and funders such as the United Way.
Thanks, Aidan.
Are there any other questions?
Pavna, I'd say, from my point of view, that last point Aidan made is a really important one for people who contribute to the United Way to know and to be confident in the way in which the agencies collaborate with each other, recognizing that these are all problems that overlap with those covered by different agencies. So it's great to know about that level of cooperation. Thanks. And thanks to the three of you again for really inspiring stories about people whose lives have been changed, but also the sobering insight into the scale of the issues that you're having to address.
Yes, and I can give you some stats, Patrick, if it helps. So our point in time count and the by name list indicate that we have about 200 people on any given day who are homeless, but that's the minimum number. There, we anticipate that the number is actually more like 300. And then if you count youth and adults who are couch surfing or moving around, it's probably closer to the 400 that was mentioned today. And that's every given day. Last year, we know that the United Way and the city, we served about 1,000 unique members of our community in just for housing. That doesn't count the support services or the people who go uncounted in, let's say, One Roof or other places. It's a pretty enormous issue, and hats off to the agencies who do such great work. You know, it's overwhelming, I'm sure, at times, but again, they work so closely together. And the important thing that we've all learned over the last few years is how we need to make the services go to where people are at, meet them where people are, but also to be more flexible in our understanding, as Aidan said, of what success looks like. Because when people are ready for change, our agencies are there, but the pace at which they're ready for change varies a lot from individual to individual. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. I hope you feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We can certainly connect you with these agencies and more. But again, thank you to all the agencies for all that they do. Thank you to the three people who came out today, Aidan, Jane, and Jill. And thank you to the Queen's community. And thank you, Patrick, for your leadership.
Oh, thanks very much to everyone. Jill, I have to say that the point you made about the extent to which people's inability to store their possessions impedes their personal health goals, many other things they want to do. It's one of those interesting things that a practical challenge that arises from the condition of homelessness will have knock-on effects in terms of health and any number of other aspects of a life. So thanks to all of you. It's been really insightful.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. If you'd like to learn more about the impact of the Queen's United Way campaign, I encourage you to visit queensu.ca/United Way. From there, as a Queen's employee or retiree, you can also donate towards the campaign. I'd like to invite you to join us for our next speaker series session on Wednesday, November 2nd at noon as well, where we will learn how the United Way funded programs are working to eliminate hunger in the Greater Kingston community, as well as supporting our UN SDG goal number 2. Thank you all very much. I hope you have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody.